Hello, I'm Roberta Calacino, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator coming to you from Pompano Beach, Florida. I should be here for another 3 to 4 weeks, and then I will be back home in upstate New York. So I didn't bother turning the camera around, so you're not going to see me this time. I think you'll get over it. And I deleted the video that I made like 2 minutes ago. And I'm just starting again because it seemed like my internet was not working. Here we go. And we'll hope for the best this time around. Sometimes the second time's the charm, sometimes it's the third time. Okay, so here's my information. You are watching this group on Facebook, 11 Lakes Stamper Creatives. Sometimes people get here by mistake, so that's why I'm just telling you where you are in case you don't know. You can also watch this video, probably effective sometime tomorrow, on my YouTube channel, also by the same name, 11 Lakes Stamper. And you can shop with me at www.rcalacino.stampinup.net. I come to you every Wednesday with a new crafting class. More often than not, it's cards, sometimes 3D projects, and as I said a little earlier, if there's anything else you'd like to see, our scrapbooking kits are amazing, and I would be happy to demonstrate some of those. Just speak up and let me know, okay? This is the product of the month. This is a new program that Stampin' Up! Started in December. So for March, you can get this full pack of paper, 12 by 12 paper, normal size, normal amount of paper, for $5 with a $75 purchase. So it's always good if you're looking to spend some money to go ahead and get something else that you're going to get a really good deal on. All right, and you can only buy one though, so no matter how much you like it, you can only get one. And you can only buy it once, so you couldn't come back like a week later and get another one. All right, so that's that. And we're going to try this one more time. So hang on just a second. I started talking to you about envelopes. And what I said was that sometimes I'm better at preaching than practicing. So I always say, and I say this in my classes, no naked envelopes. That's the way I put it. All right? And even the insides of your cards. I advocate for stamping on the inside of your card too, besides just the sentiment, unless you have a ton of things to write. All right, so there's my hand. I'm gonna kind of keep moving my hands. I don't mean to fly them around, but I need to see that I'm not frozen. So anyway, I need to start keeping envelopes right here on my desk so that when I'm done stamping my card, I've got the stamps and the inks and everything already ready to go, and I can stamp some of those same images on the envelope. All right, sometimes I choose to stamp different images on the envelope depending on what the images are. So tonight we're going to use one stamp, just this one, okay, I believe, from the Round of Hellos, which I demonstrated last week. You can see this video on YouTube, also still here for another couple of weeks, and you can see the pictures of the cards that I made, also in this group. And then I'm introducing a new stamp, which I was so happy to get, called Addressed to You. And what this is clearly about is about decorating your envelopes a little bit, that thing I keep saying I'm going to do. All right, so I'm pretty excited about this. I did some samples earlier, I played around a little bit, and then I don't know why, but I put everything away. And I probably should not have done that because I was going to be using it. So I took everything off the blocks and put everything away. The little stamp that I'm using from this set is just the little speckle stamp. And again, if you've been watching me for a while, you know I love these speckle stamps. Some people call them splotch stamps, call them what you will, but they really do have a place in stamping. They are a great filler. They can add some color, and that's what you're going to see me do, is add some color. The other thing we're going to do when they're here off camera is we're going to use the blends a little bit. And before I forget about it, what I wanted to show you is that if I know that I'm going to be using the blends, I use this. It's 5.5 by 4.25. It's just a piece of cheap cardstock. I try not to use my good cardstock for stuff like this because the blends do bleed through. And if I use the blends on my envelope, I wouldn't care so much if it bled into the inside of the envelope, but it might bleed all the way through to the other side, and I don't want that. So when I'm using my blends, I will slip this in to the envelope, and if it gets really nasty looking, I'll just make another one. But I just wanted you to see what the dimensions were. It fits in perfectly, not too tight, not too loose. All right, put that over to the side and hope that I just don't forget about it. So one of the things that you can do, and I'll hang on, I'll show you that one in a minute. And I just realized I left one other thing outside, but we can do without it, I think, for now. All right, so I'm going to start out using just with something really pretty, and we'll do the blends, but I won't make you sit here and watch me coloring everything because I can show you my sample once I get started, okay? So this stamp, which is a little floral, kind of a flourish or arrangement, whatever you want to call it, all right, certainly looks like it's made to go on a corner. This would be lovely on your cards too, by the way, all right, but it's definitely lovely to go on a corner. So when you know that you're going to be using the blends, you want to use your Memento black ink. Now this is not the Memento stamp pad. Did I leave it home? Oh, I might have. The Memento stamp pad looks a lot like our Stays-On ink pad, but it's a linen stamp, and this is kind of funny. Once I explain this, you're going to wonder what's going on. So I like the way our foam pads ink up better than the linen stamp pads do. So I took my re-inker for the Memento Black and put it in a blank stamp pad, an empty stamp pad, which was supposed to be for the white ink. Now the issue is that Stampin' Up! Is putting out all new stamp pads. You don't have to buy them. If you've got a bunch of these, don't rush into buying them, but they will be available in the new in colors when the catalog comes out in May. And they're all going to be linen, which is what we used to use and we stopped using. So part of the reason that they've decided to go with the linen is that, first of all, they hold more ink, they last longer, they don't have some of the problems that the foam has. Let me see if I can show you a good example. So Mossy Meadow is a good example, and actually one of the ones I pulled out tonight to use is a good example. Which one was it? Oh, Misty Moonlight, and that's never happened before. This is new, what happened. And I don't know if you can really see it. I'm going to kind of keep turning it. My lighting's not great here. I'm going to keep turning it until I think you can see it. Yeah, it's really hard to see. Sometimes I have to hit it just right. But this ink pad and some of our deeper colors have this problem. Maybe you can see a little bit of texture there. Every once in a while they get this weird bumpiness or texture to them. It almost looks like a person with a rash, okay? And when that happens, then they don't ink up so well. So they're trying to do away with that. So, and there's nothing wrong with the linen pads, there's just a learning curve. You do not ink things up with a linen pad the same way you ink up your stamps with a foam pad. And I will absolutely do a tutorial on that as soon as the new ones come out, all right? And I know I've even had members of my team ask. So anyway, when you know that you're going to be using the blends, you need to use the Memento. And here's the reason why. It's almost like the opposite of what you would think. So the Memento is not an alcohol-based ink. You would think you would use an alcohol-based ink with alcohol markers, but that's not true. What's really the case is that you use the pigment ink with the markers, and if you're going to be using things like watercolors, then you use the Stays-On because it's waterproof. It's a permanent archival quality ink. All right, so I've inked that up, and I'm going to put it right in the corner here, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Pretty simple, pretty basic. All right, and that came out very nicely. I'm going to give it really just a second to dry. Most of our inks dry very quickly. What I like to tell people is that the deeper and richer the color, sometimes the longer it takes to dry. So I find that Blackberry Bliss, Night of Navy, Pretty Peacock, what else? Maybe Shaded Spruce, Cherry Cobbler. Some of those deeper colors take a little bit longer to dry. When I say longer, I mean like 10 seconds instead of 3 seconds. I don't mean like you can't get going in just a matter of minutes, because you absolutely can. All right, so I'm going to color these in, and I may not use the same colors that I used before. I think it would be kind of fun to use something different. So I'm going to take my light Real Red. I'm pretty much, I think, only using the lights. Our blends are an alcohol-based marker, and so they are pretty permanent. They can be used on non-porous surfaces, like as you can color glasses with them, candle holders, things like that. I haven't done a lot of that myself, to be honest, but I've seen it done. And there are some great techniques with them, and I'm not sure if my videos on those are some of the ones that got deleted, so I might want to do that again. Anyway, there's a brush end that's kind of like a paintbrush, and you have to use it very carefully because you don't want to squish it or bend it. And then there's a bullet tipped end, and that's the one I'm going to use. Alright, so I'm going to color the big flower here red. You don't have to be super precise, but sometimes, not on the cardstock, not on our cardstock anyway, but on cheap cardstock, the blends will bleed, which is why you don't want cheap cardstock, you want good cardstock. And ours really is good, and no, I'm not just saying that. I went a little bit out of the lines, and I can show you what you can do when that happens too real quick. So I'm coloring the big flower red. Alright, I'm not going to do that side, I'm just going to work on this side. I went out of the line there a little bit, and I know you probably can't even see it, right? And I'm always bringing things up close for you to see, and then I don't get them in the right spot. Well, let's see what happens. So I went out of the line, just come back here, come on. I always go in the wrong darn direction. There we go, Okay, so I went out of the line on that bottom right-hand petal, and I know you probably can't see it. And anybody who I send this card to would probably not see it either, but I can see it. So we have a thing called the color lifter. It looks blank. It doesn't have any color, but it lifts color. It's probably got some alcohol and something else in it. And if you just gently go over the spot that you went out of the lines, it takes a minute to dry, and while it's drying, it looks like you made it worse, but it really isn't. And it will take the color out. And then I go back a few minutes later, and if I think I need to do it again, I do. All right, so we've done those in real red. And then I'm going to use, just for something different, I'm going to use Light Summer Splash. I used that color last week, and I think the week before, because I'm really getting fond of it. And it's going to be going away. It's one of the 2026 in colors, which will be retiring in May when the new catalog comes out, and there will be 5 new in colors. And I think I like them too. Every once in a while we get a batch of in colors that nobody likes. But then I will very often hear people, like weeks or even a couple of months after, saying, you know what, and you know what I forgot to do? Nobody yelled at me. I forgot to put this in. Now I'm using a very light hand, so this probably isn't going to be an issue, but you do want to slip that in there just in case. Sometimes people will say, you know, I really didn't like such and such a color when it came out, and now I like it. That was really true of Wild Wheat, which was an in color that went out last year. Nobody liked it very much at the beginning. I didn't either, but then I started to see a lot of potential in it. Okay, so again, I used a very light touch. You're not doing this, you know, scribble, scribble, back and forth kind of hard thing. You're not pressing hard at all. It's like a feather light touch because you don't want it to bleed and because you don't want it to soak through too much. All right, so I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to show you the one that I made. Take that out. Maybe I'll remember to use it next time. This is the one that I made off camera. So I used different colors. I used Flirty Flamingo and I think Highland Heather and Granny Apple Green. So how pretty is that? This one is different, and it's different. I wanted you to see this because I also used that embossing folder. I used an embossing folder. It'll come to me, the Eyelet 3D embossing folder, and I embossed just the flap of the envelope. It's just kind of a neat little, something. And then I took a sponge dauber, and went over very lightly so that the color didn't seep into the crevices, but so most of it just stayed on the raised part, the embossed part, and just added a little bit of, I think it was Lost Lagoon. So that's something unexpected. People aren't going to expect to see that on the envelope, and maybe it'll keep them from tearing the envelope open. Who knows? If I got an envelope with one of these done like this on it, I would probably cut this part off and use it in some other kind of craft, because that's just me. I know not everybody's crazy. Okay, I have another one that I'm going to do something a little bit different with, and then I'll show you the sample and explain the sample to you. So we're not ready for any more coloring yet. Let's see. I'm going to put this near the one that has the coloring in it. All right, so I've got another envelope out, and I'm ready to go with that. And this time I'm going to use I'm going to use this one. So this is an odd little thing. Let me get the picture because it might be easier if you see it in the picture. All right, so in the picture it shows that this might be something that you would use to outline the area where you're going to write your address, the person's address, just to kind of fancy it up a little bit, okay? So this is real wonky, and in a way this is kind of good because the person who I'm sending one of these letters to has a really long address. He lives in a, what am I trying to say? Words are not coming. An over 55 community. Okay, so he's got like a street address, but then he's got a building name and a unit number and all of this other stuff. So it's a long address. It takes a long time to write. So when I was doing his, I took it and I opened it up like this and made it wider. But if you don't want to do that, what you need to do with the photopolymer stamps, because a lot of them are stretchy, which can be an advantage if you want them to stretch, is to just take it and drop it down on your table. Just drop it, okay? And then when you come out with your block, you're going to take your block and pick it up with the block, and now it should be back to its originally intended shape. Let's put it that way, okay? So let's find a color to use that I didn't use before. I don't know, let's see. What do I want to use? Let's do strawberry slush. These are all the colors that I used today, but I'm using them now for different things. So we're going to take that. It doesn't really matter whether you put it going this way with the opening here or the opening here. At least I don't think it matters, although I'll show you on the sample that I made why I did it a certain way. So I don't think there's a rule. I don't think it matters. So I'm going to ink that up. The nice thing about photopolymer stamps is that you can look through them and you can pretty well tell if you've over-inked or under-inked. And I'm going to put it a little ways down and sort of in the middle, the best that I can. And given the shape that it is, it almost doesn't matter if it's just a little bit crooked. Nobody will care. I promise, nobody will care. All right, when you use your photopolymer stamps with an ink that has red in it, which doesn't mean it's red. Some of the blues have red in them, so any color that has red in it, it will sometimes stain them. It's nothing to worry about. It's not a bad thing. If you clean them sooner than later, that you get less of a stain. So now I've made my nice thing where I'm going to put the person's address in there. Okay? And then the reason I was going to have this one out was because I just thought, and again, you could go to any other stamp set that you have that has something you might like to use like this. I just decided to grab that one because it was already on my desk from last week. That's basically my main reason. So I'm just going to grab some colors. I'm going to grab Calypso Coral, Lost Lagoon, and then I'm going to go over here, I think, and grab Old Olive. All right? So all I'm doing, just to kind of jazz this up a little bit, is I'm just going to start putting this around. Now remember, you don't want to interfere too much with where the stamp goes. The post office can be kind of funny about stuff like that. We don't want to make them mad. If you don't want it to look like it's going in the same direction every time, then turn your stamp around each time. All right, I am going to clean this off in between because I'm using different colors. If you're starting out with something like Lemon Lolly and going to something like Old Olive, you almost don't have to worry about it because you've already sort of cleaned it off just by stamping. But if you're going from darker to lighter, you definitely want to do that. Okay, actually I was going to, let me go to the Calypso Coral first. Okay, Calypso Coral is a nice coral color, an orangey color, but not like Halloween orange. All right, so then I'm going to stamp a little bit here. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm sort of making a pattern. You don't have to make a pattern. You can be not OCD. All right, there goes my pattern. I blew my pattern by putting that there, and that's fine. All right, and then I'll get the Lost Lagoon out. So we've got kind of a bluish green and a greenish green. And now I'm going to put that sort of in between those other ones. just to sort of fill things out. Now, I might put my return address label here, and it might cover part of that up, and I don't care about that. That's fine. All right, just like I said, sometimes the post office gets a little funny with you interfering with their postage space. All right, so that just kind of jazzed it up a little bit, okay? Now, let's talk about happy mail, all right? I think, well, I was going to say I think all mail is happy, but that would be a lie because a lot of mail is bills, although most of us, I think, pay our bills online these days. So when I see something in my mailbox that's not a bill, that's not a flyer for some new restaurant, that's not obvious advertising, I get kind of excited, especially if I can tell that it's a card from someone or an invitation to something or whatever. I get kind of excited, okay? So that's happy mail. That's one way of phrasing happy mail. All right, I'm turning the word happy upside down on my desk. I'm going to try to get it straight. I'm going to try to pick it up straight. Emphasis on the word try because I don't always get there. And then they also have a stamp that says mail, and I'm going to put that down upside down on my desk. I want to try to get them as close as possible. They will still end up being a decent amount apart, and that's okay. And then I'm going to take, let's just take something totally different that doesn't even match what I just did. Let's take real red. And you could do this in 2 different colors. I didn't even think about that until just now. And I'm going to stamp on here, happy mail. Now, in the world of crafters, sometimes happy mail doesn't just mean sending somebody a card. Happy mail might be me sending someone something that I made, or some cards that I made that I'm giving to them, not as a card to them, but as a card that they could use to send to others. It might mean sending them some die cuts or some scraps of fabric. It all depends on what kind of crafting you do. It might be an envelope with scraps of yarn because you know someone who does things with yarn besides knitting, like they use scraps to make tassels or whatever. Okay, so like I said, in the world of crafters, that's happy mail. You're sending them a gift, but it's not like a present that you went out to the store and bought. It's something where you went into your stash and you said, what am I not using? What do I have some extra of? What would make so-and-so happy? Okay, so that's my definition of happy mail. So now let me show you the one that I made. And here's the one that I made, and I'll tell you about it without saying too much. So same thing, different colors, used the dots, used the happy mail thing, used the little loop. I opened it up and made it wider, like I said, and there's a stamp in there that says team. And it's funny because I wasn't quite sure what that would refer to or how I could use that. I could send something to my team members, my Stampin' Up! Team members, and I could label it team. And there's a young man who we sometimes help with fundraisers and whatnot because he has a physical disability and his family needs special things. And when they have fundraisers for him, they call it Team J. And so I thought, well, this is, I'll tell you without a last name or anything, this is a firefighter in my community in upstate New York. And he has recently come upon some health problems, and he's had to have some surgery, and right now he's not real happy. So we're sending him sunshine baskets, we call them, every once in a while, and I've encouraged people to send cards. And he let us know at a meeting that I was in Monday night that he was very, very happy with the things that we've sent him and receiving the cards. It's just really making him feel loved. So I put Team Kenny on here. I thought that would be kind of cool. And then I'll put his address, and I'm just sending him a card. I mailed one yesterday to him, so I'm not going to mail this one right away. I don't want him to think I'm a stalker. I just want to make him happy, but I don't want to scare him. So that's all I'm going to do. And now we've got another one. I'm trying to use most of the stamps here so that you can see what they all are. This one I'm going to do some coloring, so I'm going to stick my little sheet in here. You could use a piece of chipboard. The thing is, you want to use something flat and smooth because it's hard to stamp on anything that might have a bumpiness to it. Like, don't use a piece of cardboard or whatever. Okay, so for this one, we're going to put this aside. I'm not going to use this right now. And this time I'm going to take out this squarish one, which serves the same exact purpose. I'm going to kind of just toss it down on my desk. It actually looks like I tossed it a little crooked. There we go. And then I'm going to try to pick it up fairly straight. That really wasn't very straight, so I'm going to try it again. Again, you know, these are the kinds of things you can't lose sleep over. because your average person is not going to say, would you look at that? She stamped it crooked. They're not even going to know that you stamped it crooked. Some of them might not even know that you stamped. They might not even understand what you're doing. So just don't worry about it, okay? And then for this one, we have the word happy again. So I'm going to put that down on my desktop, and I'm going to pick it up. There's glue on my block, which does make it hard to clean. Some people say they throw these in the top shelf of their dishwasher and wash them in the dishwasher. I haven't tried that. I just put them in a sink full of really hot sudsy water, and then after they've been soaking for a few minutes, I rub them with my finger or a sponge to get, not a scratchy sponge though, just a nice sponge, just to get the the glue or whatever. It's amazing the stuff that will end up on your blocks. Like, you wonder how glue could end up on your blocks, but it happens. So the same way I did the other one, I'm going to try to get this kind of close. Maybe it would look a little more interesting if I offset it a little bit. And again, it's pretty hard to get two stamps close, and if you put them one on top of the other, one won't be flat, and so it won't stamp properly. So they have to be above or below, but not on top of. Of course, I had none of this trouble when I did this on my own. No, it won't let me go. Sheet, come on. Okay. So close, but not on top of. And like I said, I'm going to try offsetting it a little bit. Okay, so I think you've gathered that this is a happy birthday one now. I'm just trying to figure out if I'm safe to do what I want to do, or if I should do this in a certain order. And I think I should do it in a certain order, and I'll tell you why. So sometimes when you're stamping, and you know you're stamping multiple images, you want to make sure that you leave room for the other images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the balloon stamp, which is a bunch of balloons on a string with some things that kind of look like bubbles on the side. And again, with my Memento ink, because I know that I'm coloring, I'm going to ink that up, and I'm going to stamp it in this corner. I'm going to clean it because there was something on the edges there, and I don't want that getting on. If your photopolymer stamp is wet, I just kind of tap it on my hand. If I'm wearing jeans, I tap it on my jeans just to make sure it's dry. But I'm not wearing jeans tonight, so I'm not going to do that. And although I could be wearing jeans today because it's cold here again, just saying. Right, then I'm going to stamp one in that corner. So one of the bubbles didn't come out perfectly well, and I'm okay with that. I can fix it with a really thin Sharpie marker, or better yet, with a 0.1 micron pen. But I can fix that, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Okay, so for colors, and I'm going to show you another trick with the color lifter. Let me cover this up. So I want to use different colors than what I used before. So let's see, I'm going to get out Strawberry Slush, Calypso Coral, and how about Misty Moonlight? Alright, I'm getting out ink pads, and that's not what I need. Why didn't somebody yell at me? I need blends. Alright, and I don't have all those colors, so I'll use the colors that I used in the other flowers. How's that? I'll use, let's see, what have we got here? Pretty in Pink, and I'll use the dark Pretty in Pink because it's really light and I want it to show. Again, I'm going to use the bullet tip, and I will color the one in the center Pretty in Pink. Now, I don't have the ability to lower my camera or zoom in, so I'm going to show you. I hope you can see when I'm done doing what I'm doing. First, I'm outlining it, and be careful not to go too close to the edge, because sometimes with the envelopes, because I don't think the intention was ever for these to be stamped on, but everybody's doing it, the marker might bleed outside the lines, okay? So first I go around and I outline. All right, let's see if I can get that in the right place. I think you can see it from there, but... Okay, so I'm outlining it first. Now I'm going to start over on the left, and I'm just going to make straight lines. Some people like to do little circles. And I'm going to work my way over. I'm starting on the right. Sorry, I said that backwards. And I'm working my way over to the left. And when I get to the left, I'm going to stop coloring when there's just a little bit of white left. Come on. Do I sound frustrated? I'm sorry. It's not focusing. There we go. A little bit of white on the left, which is supposed to indicate a little bit of shine on the balloon. Okay? That's what that's all about. If, however, you forget to do that and wish you had, you can take your color lifter and you can just make a little line with the color lifter where you wanted that shadow or that shine to be, and you'll have it because it will lift the color away. All right, so that's that for the, what did I say that was? Was it Flirty Flamingo? No, Pretty in Pink. All right, and then I'm going to use the light Highland Heather, and I'll color one balloon with that, also with the bullet tip. I'm going to do the same technique. I'm going to outline first. That's just kind of my way of making sure I don't go out of the lines. You might have your own technique, and if you do, that's absolutely fine. I'm here to help the newbie learn some things, and if you're already experienced and you just like to see people make cards, but you've got your own techniques, then go for it and do your own techniques. So on this one, my white is a little bit bigger, so they're not standard. They don't look identical, and that's okay. There you go. Worked much better this time. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing with, is this the bubble bath? The bubble bath, yep, with the bubble bath. All right, and maybe you can kind of see now why I said that I wanted to wait to stamp the other stuff. So I'm outlining. I'm also thinking that if I did this again, I would put the Highland Heather in the middle so that there weren't two pink ones so close to each other. Maybe you don't care about that. I think I've already shared with you. I'm just a tad OCD sometimes. All right, and I think on the other card that I made, you could either leave these bubbles alone, you could make them kind of really light bluish, or you could just really, with a dot, you know, so that they kind of look more like bubbles. These are too small to bother leaving a white spot. I don't think anybody would even see it, but you certainly can if you want to. All right. I think something like a light pool party might look nice with that too. All right, so that's that. I'm leaving that blank because we don't need to see that right now. Then I'm going to ink this one up, and I do think I've got this whole thing kind of wonky. Yeah, because these sides here are supposed to be straight, so, or that side should be straight. So I am going to try to just lift that and straighten it out. I just put my elbow in the black ink. Okay, hang on. I haven't done that in ages. Usually I keep my ink over to the left, and there's a reason for that. Okay. The reason it's on the right is because sometimes when a stamp is larger, instead of bringing the stamp to the ink pad, I bring the ink pad to the stamp. And I'm very light, just a tap, 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 very light, not smushing it in there. And then it's ready to go. And again, doesn't matter which direction it's facing in, at least I don't think so. I'm going to try to get it kind of in the middle. You want to make sure to leave room for your stamp and leave room for your return address. Some people write their return address on the back flap. I think I was taught in school at one point that that was a way to do it, but then everybody started doing it here and then got address labels, and the address labels look better here than they do on the back, I think. I don't know. That's just one woman's opinion. All right, and then I'm going to, let's see, maybe I didn't get the Highland Heather ink pad out, but maybe I will. What other? Yeah, I'll get the Highland Heather ink pad out. Hang on. I just have to move my iPad to get at it. And show you my arm. Yep, I finally have a little bit of a tan, not a lot. My face is not very tan though, because I don't like to get my face too much in the sun. Okay, so with the Highland Heather ink pad, and again, just like I said with that other one, you could certainly use two colors. I'm going to put Happy Birthday right down here. And I just wanted to make sure that I left room for everything. So now I have two Happy Birthday envelopes. And because this stamp set is specific to doing this, you don't have to worry about using this envelope and having it match the card that you're sending. At least that's what I think. Okay? You might think differently, but that's what I'm thinking. It doesn't have to match. All right, so then let me show you the other one that I did. All right, right, so this is the one that I did off camera. Basically the same thing, different colors. On this one, I didn't have much success using the technique that I just showed you because I sort of made that one up while we were doing it, of starting on the right and working your way to the left. So for this one, I did take the color lifter, and I think you can see that I still managed to get that little shiny spot using the color lifter. Okay, it came out better on the two greenish ones than it did on the red one for whatever reason. And I put happy birthday twice, why not, right? So I just had to check, make sure I hadn't done anything on the back of this, and I hadn't. So that's good. And I just remembered, I forgot to take this back out, and you know, I'll be looking for it next week because I keep it in a certain place. Okay, now, getting to the stamp set that I showed you last week, the Hello of Rounds. I kind of forgot when I said I was only using one stamp. I lied. I realized last week that there were a lot of possibilities for this stamp, this particular one with the stripes. I thought you could do a lot of things with it. So I wanted to demonstrate that because I like for people to see that sometimes they see me make a card and it's a birthday card. And someone will say, well, you made a birthday card. I don't want to make birthday cards. Well, then don't. You can use the same stamp set and just use it for what you want it for. But some people have that problem. My husband was a person who had that problem. When we were shopping for houses at one point, if we went into the house and he didn't like the color of the paint, he didn't want to buy the house. And I was like, honey, they sell paint and these things called, you know, brushes and rollers, and we could just paint the house and then it would look like what we wanted. So last week, or today rather, I did make one card just showing another way to use that. And the same thing could be used on the bottom of a card, not just an envelope. And here I put the line stamp, which is good for people like me who tend to write uphill. I was a teacher for 37 years and I could not write on a blackboard or a whiteboard without writing uphill. I don't know what the issue was, but I just couldn't do it. So these lines were great, and at one point when we had chalk, you had those things, you might remember them from school, that your teachers stuck the chalk in, and they held it in their hand, and they went across, and it squeaked terrible, and everybody went, ugh! Yeah. So, but they didn't have those for smart boards for markers, at least not that I know of, at least not when I was teaching. So lines were my friend. This one I didn't do such a good job of stamping, so it didn't come out great, but I just used this, and I used it along the bottom. All right. If I wanted to, I could probably go up the side, but I'd have to stop before I got here. All right. So I don't really need to make another one of those. I just wanted to show you that. And then last but not least, because we have to throw Christmas in here, there are stamps. There is no Merry, but there's a Happy. Now I think it's in the United Kingdom. They say Happy Christmas, not Merry Christmas. No reason why you can't say Happy Christmas, or find the word Merry in another one of your 1,000 stamps, because you might have it. And then they have the stamp that has, this is all in this set, they have the stamp that has snowflakes. And so I did those in Pool Party on the edges there. Then I picked up the stamp that is, and I'm going to put it on a block so you can see it, because I thought, was somebody not thinking, or what's the deal here? So this stamp, when you put it on the block or look at it in the package, certainly looks like it was meant to be on a corner. But with the snowflake one, just like with the flower one that we did a couple of minutes ago, you could flip it around and it would work just as well, because they were images that could go in any direction. So I stamped the trees in shaded spruce up here, and I know I probably shouldn't have, because that's where the stamp goes, but I'm going to put my stamp here. And if they have a problem with that, well, I don't know. All right, and so then I use this stamp, I use the lines, and the word post is in there, so I grabbed that too. But when I flipped this over to do it on the other side, then the trees were all laying on their side or going in the wrong direction, and that really bothered me. Plus, it wasn't going to be symmetrical because the short part was going to be here. You see what I'm saying? So I didn't stamp it there because it was going to bother me. It may not bother you, and maybe all you have to do is just stamp it once. Maybe you could flip it over, but this is embossed as well, only this one I embossed backwards. So you are seeing what's called the debossed side, not the embossed side. I hope you can see the difference between the two. So in this one I put it in so that the part that was pressing on the folder pushed stuff in on the other side. And so that wasn't what I really wanted, but again, it looks okay. But if you didn't have that there, then you could just put it in a corner there, and then maybe, yeah, that's it. You can't even really use it here. And you could use it in your card. I just didn't like the way it looked, so I only did one of them. But this would be great for your Christmas stamps too, or anything having to do with winter birthdays, or whatever, okay? So we've got a Christmas card just because it had that stamp and I felt like I had to use it. And then we've got one where we used another stamp to make a trim. And then we've got the birthday, happy birthday one. And then we've got the one that's for Happy Mail, which is really just anything you send anybody, whether it's just a card or a gift. And then the floral one. All right, and like I said, and then in some cases we have embossing on the back. And the other thing that I took out and then forgot to bring in here with me is you can put a piece of designer series paper on here. It has to be 6 inches long to cover the flap, and it has to be, I think we decided, 2 1/4 inches in height. So it's perfect for some of the scraps that you might have. Yeah, it should be 2 1/4, and then you're just going to pick up the flap and you're going to trim around the edges. 2 1/4 by, at the widest point, almost 6. Yeah, so 2 1/4 by 6, and you can cover your flap with designer series paper. And that's just kind of a really neat look. So thank you for watching tonight, and I'll have to find some cards to put in these really pretty envelopes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in 1 week. Enjoy the rest of your week. Good night.